Hi, Nina. Thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
Hello, Nikki. It's my pleasure to be back.
Just before we begin, I just wanted to get your verbal consent that I am recording this meeting together and it will be shared with my professor. At any point in time, you can ask me to stop the recording, or after all is said and done, you can request that I delete the recording, whatever makes you feel most comfortable.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know.
Of course. So, last time we met, we were talking about your desire to maybe shift some of the discussions with your team about your list. And I'm just hoping to check in on that briefly.
So, coincidentally enough, I think a day or 2 days after our last session, my team came in the office and said, "Give me your list. I'm going to knock down a bunch of things on the list." So, while that made me very happy, I feel like it lightly took away my ability, like crazy strong desire at that moment, to kind of hold a meeting and sit down with them and kind of share my frustrations. So, as much as I wanted to do that and get on the same page, it was kind of like they stepped up and did it without being asked, which was great. And I feel that we addressed a lot of things on my list, and my tenants were happy with me again. And now we're just working on some flips that we have, and those are going very smoothly.
So you were feeling a lot of anxiety and built up tension towards the list and the team and the undone items on that list. And in regards to the product you were providing for your tenants, and you had this extensive list of repairs that you were hoping to sit down and talk with your team about, but they ended up doing the list on their own, and that helped to relieve your anxiety,
Correct.
which also resulted in a diminished amount of motivation towards that direct conversation that we had discussed previously.
Correct. So I unfortunately feel that I'll be in that same situation again sooner than later. Um, if and when my list, starts to grow again. We are getting ready to start a new project, which luckily this next project is a lot closer to home base. Our last project was out about 45 minutes from home base, so this one is much closer. So I'm hoping, with this project being closer, they can still carve out maybe sometime at the end of their days, on that project on their way home or whatnot, to hit a couple things on my list. So
So you're developing some concerns about the future. And as that list starts to get going again and new projects get started, you're thankful that they're going to be close to home and can address the list in the future when there is a list, but they are
hopefully they
going to be occupied with other projects.
correct, correct.
Where does that leave you in terms of planning for that direct conversation in the future? Because, like you said, their list is going to form again.
Right. I mean, maintenance is unfortunately an ongoing situation. Um, so I'm hoping that with the start of this new project, I'm hoping that the team has some in office meetings, whether that's with our distributors, our contractors, things like that. So I'm hoping that they're going to be in the office a little bit more, until they're in the thick of the project. So then that way I can kind of, have it printed out or have it on a table. And hopefully their attention span is still, has a little bit of room at the end of their meetings. But like next week, I know that we have a meeting coming in with the lumberyard, so I'm hoping that after that, my team kind of hangs around, decompresses a little bit, talks through that meeting, and then maybe we'll say, what else is going on? And then that kind of can be my opening slot to say, well, if you guys are starting to plan your next 7 days, can you carve out some time for this, this, and this?
So you're going to organize on your end ahead of time to have this, and this ready to present the next time you guys are all in together for a meeting.
Yeah, I still have my list. There are still a couple things on it. Some nothing is major. I feel that my list has gotten down to manageable, and it's not necessarily as backed up as it was. Like I said in our last session, I had things on that list for weeks and weeks. And unfortunately, those tenants would call and ask me for an update, and sometimes I have to kind of just feed them a little bit of fluff and just kind of buy time because it wasn't a priority for my team. But like I said, those things are a priority for the tenants. I mean, they're in their homes and things should be, working as they should. So as of right now, my lists are slimmer, less major, nothing that anyone I think is being frustrated with right now. But every day is different. I mean, last night we had a major plumbing catastrophe out at our far project that's about 45 minutes away. The team had to pick up and go. It was about 9 p.m. at night. They were out there for probably an hour and a half, snaking out some lines because one of the tenants was flushing wipes. So, unfortunately, sometimes the issues that take place in these apartments are tenant caused, and sometimes they're just building caused. So, if and when in the future I just have to work it out with a tenant, depending what the situation is. Um, but if it needs dire attention, I know my team will jump and take care of it.
So the necessity and the importance of the things getting done falls on the tenant, obviously, because it's affecting their living situation, which then affects you. Then the list gets created, and the urgency, though, is kind of decided by the team.
Correct. It's based on what do they still have energy for left at the end of their day and what they can go address. So um, I'm hoping that nothing major comes up and that every now and then they'll have a little bit of time and energy left at the end of their day to help me feel less stressed. So I definitely, after last week, have totally felt less stressed. I didn't hate coming to work every day and looking at my list on my computer screen. It definitely was a wave of fresh air, and I got to enjoy my position again. I wasn't stressed when it came to answering the phone or seeing what email came through, and if it was going to be a tenant that was feeling ignored.
So you enjoy your position and you like the work that you do, and you have high standards for your work ethic. But when your team isn't showing up in that same regard, um, some negative feelings kind of come into that and cause you to feel stress and aggravation and not wanting to go to work.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Some would rather put myself first like they do, right? Because sometimes I feel it's, their things on their list are more important, but it's kind of like, would you give me this job for then if we're not going to take care of the things that come my way? So sometimes I kind of feel like a placeholder and I'm just kind of here to smooth things over. And I can do an okay job at that for an okay amount of time. But like I said, sometimes those items just get ignored and ignored because they don't want to go do the job. I get it. It's going to be a laborious job. It's going to be a tedious job, and you're going to have to really focus your energy on it. And I know that they have a lot of other things going on their plate as well. Um, but yeah, sometimes it just makes me feel like, what's the point? What's the point? Why should I even answer the phone? Because I'm not going to have a real solution. But it was nice that they decided to carve out some time for me and my list.
And that was without having a conversation, correct?
Correct. So after our session, I actually was excited to maybe try to ask them like, "Hey, let's sit down. Let's all get on the same page. Maybe you guys don't know how it's affecting me because of my little comments and things like that, and I keep it light because I don't want it to be overwhelming." Um so as happy as I was to get the list done, I also was a little disappointed just because I feel this situation unfortunately will happen again. So I will try to have my best foot forward if and when I get there, in my list situation and in my feelings and in my stress and anxiety, to actually have that conversation. But it was nice that I didn't have to, in a sense, but also terrible that I didn't get to, um, because I feel as though it's just always going to be a snowball effect, and then it will eventually get taken care of, and then we'll kind of start over again. Which I guess potentially is the name of the game, right? I don't know that my boss would ever have a employee that strictly just sits in my office and waits for me to tell them something to do. So I get that, that's not necessarily feasible. And I get that things have to be, addressed and scheduled in a timely manner. And that's kind of what comes with me from the hospitality world is a timely matter, which the hospitality world immediately. So I get a little bit stressed out when it's been, 5 days a week or going on 2 weeks, and I don't love to hear the frustration when a tenant calls me. Um, but yeah, I think we definitely do still need to find a perfect balance. Um, but again, I get that every day and every week in this industry is going to be a little different. I mean, I'll have a very quiet week where, knock on wood, nothing really goes wrong. And then I'll have a terrible week where anything that can go wrong goes wrong. So it's just trying to find that balance in the middle.
So you're aware that whether the list happens quickly or slowly, there will be a list. There will
will
be
always
tenants. There will always be a list. There will always be maintenance and tasks and things to complete that you are fielding the calls for. The tenants are aggravated. Um, you have a desire to have these things done in your mind one set time frame, which you were trained to think was immediate. Which it sounds like you have a lot of understanding and flexibility in terms of rental timeframes aren't immediate, and you seem to be very understanding of the additional responsibilities that fall on your teammates, but you still have expectations that they attend to that list. Okay.
right because, like I said, I feel like because we didn't get to address it, um, that list was very stale. That list was dated. So it's just because they finally got to it doesn't mean that the next time there's a list that it's gonna get to it in my timely manner because I haven't voiced to them, hey, what do you guys think is a timely manner? Maybe like I said, maybe my expectations are too high and maybe they need to direct me and say, hey, listen, when it comes to, you know, a microwave that's on the fritz. They have other means, they can use a toaster oven or they can use their oven. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not going to drop everything in the next 2 days and go take care of it. Um, which I get, me as a female that doesn't really cook much. I rely on my microwave, so I get it. Um, but it's not like they're a hotel guest that's only going to be in that room for 1 to 2 nights, and that's their only option. So um, they do have other means of getting things done. So maybe my team can kind of instill in me, and maybe I need a little bit of training on how they'd like me to tell a tenant, okay, well, it's going to be 5 to 7 business days, and if that's going to be our standard, then that can be our standard. I guess I just need us to kind of have a little bit more transparency in the team so that my expectations also can be what I'm sharing with the tenant when they are the ones in control of who's going to go fix it. If I knew how to replace the microwave, maybe I would go do it at the end of my day, but unfortunately, that's not in my jack of trades.
So a better line of communication between you and them in terms of timeline so that you can then in turn relay it to the tenant, so that you have a better understanding of where they find these tasks to fall on the priority list. But it's sounding to me like you still wanted to explore your excitement and desire to be more direct in this effort towards an open line of communication.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I love that the list got done, but I do wish that I could have gave it to them a little bit just so that they could, understand where I'm coming from and how I've been feeling. Um, they sometimes will come in, or if and when I, tell them an item on the list, they're like, well, I've had a really bad day and I just don't have it in me. And it's never like I get to say, well, I've had a really bad day and I can't let it sit on my list anymore. So we got to meet somewhere in the middle. Or, this has been eating at me. Or, I've had 12 conversations with this tenant and you got to understand their frustration in this situation. And I need you to find a little bit of energy in yourself to help me get this taken care of. Um, we like have a group chat also that's like named repairs, and sometimes things get said in there and it's just kind of like you're waiting for one of the three members of the team to say like, oh, I can do it or I can't do it. And sometimes it just goes quiet, so then it just goes on the list and then it kind of just eats away at me. So I do still want there to be a day and time situation where my team and I can kind of just set a better motion for us moving forward together. I do enjoy the job. I do enjoy the team. I enjoy all the tenants. I mean, it's honestly was a really great next step for me from the hospitality world. Um, I think I also just need some of their support to help me navigate through this new career, which I've been in it, quite some time. And like I said, every day is different. So it's been maybe not necessarily piling up. When I first started, we weren't building anything. So the last year and a half, 2 years has kind of been different than the first 2 years that I was employed with this team, um, because they were gone. That was our furthest property that they've ever done. So I think it was a lot on them as well. And I think moving forward, I'm excited that this new project is a lot closer, but also know that there will be a time and place that I'll have my feelings again that I had last time we spoke. And hopefully they don't come in the office and just say, okay, I'm yours. What do you want me to do today? And I could say like, hey guys, can we just like have a powwow real quick? Because I have a lot of feelings that I need to get out based on my list.
So being able to be heard is something that's a priority for you. And being newer in this arena versus the arena you had spent a lot of time in with hospitality, um, you're hoping to gain a better understanding, like we talked about, of those timelines and of those priorities because they're not set by you, but still being able to be heard and acknowledged, and your voice and your concerns and your feelings surrounding it and your expectations being validated, by your place of employment and the people that you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a family run business. So I want them to not look at me as just an employee. Oh, she'll be fine. I don't want it to necessarily be that I'm, overlooked and I'm just kind of another step in the realm of communication, um, between the tenants and the team. I want to feel that I'm a part of the team. So I would like for them to know how it's affecting me, um, being in the role that they've put me in, which I think I do pretty good at the role. But also, unfortunately, I think that I keep quiet a lot. Um, so I think that sometimes they just don't know, and that's on me because I don't share. Or, like I said before, I make a little comment like, oh, this list, it's driving me nuts. But I say it with a smile on my face or, with a little laugh in the background. So they don't necessarily know that that's just how I'm expressing it, but it's actually driving me insane.
So, would it be safe to say that working on your directness is a next step for you?
Yes.
Sorry, we're losing a little bit of connection. I'll wait until you get where you're going.
Sorry, I had to get a charger.
No worries.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. So,
So yes,
increasing your ability, we're still a little choppy.
is it any better now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So, do you feel like there's other areas of your life that you want to establish more direct interactions or express yourself more clearly?
All of them. Sometimes it feels like all of them. But I think that I have a wonderful group around me. I think that when I was younger and I wasn't as direct, I think I was taken advantage of, and I think I put others in front of myself a lot more than I do now. I think that I've kind of gone through the motions with certain friend groups back in the day, and I do feel that now I am surrounded by a really solid crew of people that are all very considerate. I am struggling in, I think, instilling to my fiance that I want to be married. We've been engaged for almost 2 years coming up. And when we had had conversations in the past, I had always said, don't ask unless you're ready to actually get married, because I really don't want to be engaged for more than like a year and like a little bit of time. So we're coming up at the end of this month. We'll be 2 months, 2 years engaged. And I think my snide comments of, oh yeah, we could get married, or oh yeah, you want to buy a new boat? Fine, but we're going to get married on the top of it, is not really getting through to him how much it really is starting to weigh on me. Um, I make little comments like, oh, this ring didn't work. I guess you're going to have to get me a bigger one because this one didn't get us to a wedding. So I do think that in my near future, I do need to kind of lay out the importance of being what his wife means to me, um, so that we can actually get the ball rolling in trying to plan something. Which half of the battle that comes with planning our wedding is his network here where we live is extremely huge. So if we were to have a wedding here, local, it would be 700 people. And a lot of those people I would not even know. And I think that that's way out of my wheelhouse. So we've always discussed getting married in Florida. And I think sometimes the problem with that in my mind is I don't know anyone in Florida. So, sure, I could call a florist and say, hey, this is what I want to do. But I don't know them. I don't know that they're actually going to show up and do, a great job, or I could get scammed, or, anything like that. And then another obstacle is a venue. I mean, you see pictures online, but then, if and when you go tour somewhere, it's completely different. We actually toured one venue so far, and it was nice. but it didn't really explain to you on the website that, you get married here, all of your guests then have to walk across the street to go to where the reception would be. So it's tricky. And when we have time to go to Florida, um, we're enjoying it. So it's like been kind of hard to carve a day out to tour 5 venues. Um, so it unfortunately has been pushed to the back burner, which, like I said, is starting to weigh on me because I have nothing but interest in being this man's wife.
So you established from the inception of your relationship that when engagement was put on the table that you only wanted it to be for a certain time range. So you established that boundary pretty clearly, it sounds, prior to engagement. And now that the engagement is in effect, you've reached past that boundary that you established for yourself prior to the engagement. And it's weighing on you the more time that passes further into this engagement without a plan for marriage.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not getting any younger.
So there's some obstacles faced in terms of logistics for the wedding, but before those logistics can be ironed out, you need to have a conversation, a more direct conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely need to say it in a way that he hears me instead of my little comments, hoping that they trigger something. Like, maybe someone would make a comment and I would pick up on it because I know that I'm that way. But not everyone, picks up on my little comments, and it might just be a joke. And I, unfortunately, keep it light and fluffy because I'm not direct, and I got to work on being more direct so that I can get my point across. And if it is that there needs to be more time, just like with work, fine. But I need to maybe know that. I need to be informed of that. I need to at least know, that that's still our goal, that we're still moving towards that. That's still something that's of interest to both parties.
What does it feel like when you think about having that direct conversation? Because you've mentioned now a few times, you kind of make, I wouldn't call them passive aggressive comments, but passive comments, hoping that it lands for the recipient. And you're doing that at your place of work and in your home life, in your relationship, in an attempt to still be heard and to still get your point across, but you're acknowledging that it's not happening as successfully as you would like it to happen. So, how does that feel for you to think about sitting down and it not being light and fluffy and it being, a deeper conversation about feelings, about timelines, and not necessarily knowing what that other person's response is going to be?
Right. So I mean, like, if I were to go to my team and say, like, hey, I need you guys to, be on this stuff more or quicker or, whatever to make me feel better, they might say that's never going to happen. And if you can't get with that program, then maybe this isn't the job for you. Which obviously, would be my biggest fear. Um, I guess I don't want to get complacent in not having a good standard. I don't want my boss to say, when these tenants call you, tell them it'll be 10 to 14 days. So I guess as much as I want to have the conversation, I also I don't want to hear what I don't want to hear. So I guess maybe that makes me not want to say it. In terms of my wedding planning, I fear him saying, well, then we're going to have to do it in Buffalo, because I would be so overwhelmed um, with a 700-person wedding. I feel like I would not even remember the day. It would be such a whirlwind. So um, I guess I would rather keep with my passive comments, hoping that they land. But I do deep down know that those aren't getting me any further. I mean, I've been making the passive comments for probably the last 6 months, if not longer, because I knew we didn't have anything planned. And especially with doing like a destination wedding, I'd always said, like, we need to give people notice. If I'm expecting someone to, plan a vacation basically around our wedding because they're going to need hotel, flight, a rental, time off of work, childcare, things like that, they need ample notice. So it's not just as easy as, throwing a wedding where you live, where people might just need a babysitter for a couple hours in an Uber. Um, but also the idea of planning the wedding is also very overwhelming to me. Um, so as much as, I mean, little girls plan their weddings, they have a Pinterest board, they know what they want, they know their vision. I don't think I'm really one of those girls. I mean, I might see some videos online and, save them on my Instagram or my TikTok, but I guess I don't really know what the day looks like for me. Um, and part of me is not concerned as much with the day. I'm more concerned with having my partner, solidified with me for the rest of my life. So when I make the comment, "Oh, sure, you want to buy that big boat right there? Fine, but we're gonna get married on the hood of it, because that's what's important to me is to be married." So I know that there's a lot that goes into it, and I guess that freaks me out a little bit too.
So there's some apprehension on your end in terms of the amount of responsibility that would come into play if you had that direct conversation and now you move to the next step of planning and you're not necessarily ready to do the planning. But let's take it a few steps backwards first. Before that direct conversation happens, or maybe the topic of that direct conversation is, are there any other options on the table besides Buffalo or a destination wedding in Florida? Have you guys explored any other ideas?
Um, no, I guess I don't think so. I mean, like I said in my passive comments, I would say like I'll go to City Hall right now. But I guess not like a serious conversation. I think that in his realm, he knows that every woman wants to have a wedding day. And in our past conversations, it's been said, I wouldn't want to do that to you because I know it would be overwhelming. I know that, me bringing 550 people or 700 people that you haven't even all met, wouldn't be an enjoyable wedding day for you. So I think that it then turned to, well, we could do a destination, and then that way we don't feel guilty not inviting 700 people. That kind of makes it a little bit more understandable, when someone didn't get an invite. So I think that that just sounded great at the time, which I think it does still. I think it would just take a little bit of time. I would maybe need some time out of the office. I maybe need to be there for a week, outside of it being a vacation, um, to explore the options down there. Would I go to City Hall? Yes, I would go to City Hall. But then I feel like I would also want some big party and celebration, which doesn't need to be as formal as a wedding. Um, so yeah, I think that we kind of just like made a quick decision on Florida. And maybe if that's just not realistic, then we maybe need to go back to the drawing board. But we definitely need to get to the drawing board.
So, what are your thoughts and feelings then about exploring on your own prior to the direct conversation that you plan to have? If there's any alternative options, because you identified that solidifying, you know what I mean, your partnership is what's the priority to you. And it's not, and that comes primary to the logistics of where it is and who's coming and what the day looks like and all of those, you know what I mean, superficial factors. For you, it's creating a union between you and your partner. Um, and it doesn't sound like, you guys are super stringent on, it sounds like you guys are pretty contemporary and flexible and open to the idea of a alternative type of, marriage ceremony. but you want to
Yeah, I
establish
think
a,
that
a
I could
timeline.
definitely, right. I think that I could definitely explore some options. I mean, maybe there is something in the middle of, Buffalo and Florida having a full blown that I think could accommodate. Um, I guess I just haven't gone to that drawing board on my own. So I think that it would be super smart of me to maybe have a couple options to lay out when I do have this conversation to say, these are the paths that I think I would be comfortable with going down, for us to get to our goal of being husband and wife. So which one do you think could work for you as well?
Okay. So kind of like a circle of what works for you, and then maybe he creates a circle of what works for him, and whatever overlaps are the options that you guys choose from.
Right? And then we need to start a plan to get organized, to get booked, to get the ball rolling so that we get married.
Would it be safe to say, though, that the first step of that conversation would need to be what direction to start going in for the planning?
Well, I guess I would need to, lay out my options. So if I'm okay with eloping, then I need to do a little bit of research there. If I'm okay with just city hall and a party, then I need to, maybe get a little bit of information. So yeah, I guess I need to see like what alternative methods there are and see which one I think could fit for us and
Okay.
then present it.
So it sounds like having some research to back you up makes you feel more comfortable to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think it would just be easier. I think that if I laid out options, you know how men are, it's not that they necessarily know. So if I, like I said, could give options and say, hey, would you do this instead of doing this or this one instead of that one? Then maybe I could present it and then we could get somewhere.
And how many options would be a goal of yours to create? So, say you're making this list prior to the conversation. How many options would you imagine having?
Well, I guess Buffalo wedding, Florida wedding, city hall, elopement. Uh, I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to go crazy and have a surplus of ideas, but um, maybe four or five options, and maybe it's a different location. Maybe it's an all inclusive. Maybe it's a cruise. Maybe it's, you know, things like that, where it's just going to be what it's going to be. Um, so yeah, maybe four or five. And maybe just with the other options that gets us back to doing what we originally kind of decided on. Um, I could say, well, let's just go elope and then we'll just, have a party. And he might say, no, that's not what you deserve. If we're going to do Florida, then let's do it. I'm going to carve out time, you carve out time. And let's, put ourselves first for once.
So, having a timeline is important to you, and moving forward with this progress is important to you. So, what do you think a timeline you could give yourself to come up with this 4 or 5 option list would be? How long do you think that would take?
Mm, well, maybe a week, 2 weeks. So I
Okay.
could explore the internet and, see what's out there as options. I think I've only been to pretty traditional weddings. And I don't know that I've really looked
Excuse me.
for secondary or, third options out there.
Okay. So, would it be safe to say by the end of the month you would have a pretty good establishment of this list?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And just some ideas, maybe think and feel as you're writing this list and as you're exploring each of those options prior to exploring it with your partner. Try to keep in mind what you feel as you're maybe jotting down some of these details that you research about each one. Try to see if you can hone in on how it feels to your body, how it feels to your heart, and to yourself as you're writing down talking about a destination wedding. Does it feel exciting? Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel like something you want to do? Or planning a wedding in Buffalo, does it feel exciting? Does it, try to also include that maybe on a separate list for yourself.
Right.
Okay. So next time we meet will be next month, and then we can talk about how your list came along. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about today?
No, I think you gave me a lot of things to think about, and I think I have some homework that I need to get to.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing all about it during our next session.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
You.